It's Tim Sheezer for TechSpot here, and I'll readily admit that I'm not much of a gaming laptop kind of person. I tend to prefer to play my PC games on a desktop where I get things like upgradability and also, generally speaking, higher performance than what you can achieve from even a high-end gaming laptop. So when Alienware came to me with the Alienware 13 and the graphics amplifier, I was definitely intrigued by the package. The laptop itself is, as you might expect, a 13-inch model that's reasonably portable and comes with mid-range specifications that are good enough for gaming on the go. But the idea is that when you come home and you sit your gaming laptop down on your desk for a more extended session, you can plug in the graphics amplifier that houses a full desktop class GPU, giving you the power of a desktop class system and also the upgradability, because when a new graphics card comes along, you can simply swap out what's inside the graphics amplifier. So it's definitely a very intriguing idea from Alienware. But before I get into talking about the graphics amplifier itself, let's go through the Alienware 13 laptop. Now, I mentioned that it's fairly portable as far as gaming laptops go, and that's because it is kind of small at 13 inches, but it's average in terms of its size for a 13-inch gaming notebook, coming in at 26 millimeters thick and just over 2 kilograms heavy. So it's not as portable as systems like Gigabyte's Aorus X3 and X3 Plus, which they've recently released. It comes with a fairly standard Alienware sci-fi style, which is it being not a perfect rectangle, it's quite angular and curved in some areas, and it comes with Alien FX lighting all over the place with 8 separate lighting zones that you can control via RGB LEDs in the device's software. On the back of the device, you get HDMI and DisplayPort for extending to external displays, as well as the graphics amplifier's PCI 4X slot that I will talk about a little bit later. On the left-hand side of this notebook, which I have here, is the USB 3.0 port and 2 3.5mm audio jacks, as well as the power connector. And on the other side, a further 2 USB ports and Ethernet. You also notice on these sides that you get speakers, which are actually powered by Klipsch audio, which are very, very powerful and can go quite loud. I wouldn't say they're the best quality, but they will certainly suffice for gaming. The majority of the Alienware 13 is covered by either grey or black matte plastic with a soft touch finish applied to the area around the keyboard. The keyboard I found to be quite good actually as far as gaming laptops and laptops in general go for keyboards. The travel is quite good and I felt it to be quite responsive. Not as good as a mechanical keyboard that I usually use on a desktop, but hey, it's a laptop and unless you're MSI, you can't really fit a mechanical keyboard inside a laptop. As for the trackpad, I didn't find it to be quite good. It didn't feel as responsive and has kind of an awkward feel to it, and some of the gestures that I like to use didn't work as nicely as I expected, but for a gaming laptop, I'd expect that you would be plugging in an external mouse anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. There are a number of different Alienware 13 models available to purchase. The one I received to review comes with a 1080p display, but there's also a lower end 1366 by 768 model that I would definitely advise you not to get, and on the higher end spectrum there is a 1440p model if you want that higher resolution display. The resolution of this particular model I found to be not really too much of a concern. It's quite nice, and the IPS technology lends itself to improving color quality somewhat, but it's not as good as some of the recent IPS high-end displays that I've seen on some Ultrabooks that come with things like a touchscreen that this particular laptop doesn't have. Other things though, like the 350 nits of brightness and general responsiveness that is great for gaming, are two strengths of this particular display, though I did notice some things like a small amount of backlight bleed and slight unevenness in terms of its white portrayal on that particular display. So maybe the 1440p model is better, but as far as the 1080p display is concerned, it's just a little bit average. Of course, the most important aspect of any gaming laptop is its performance, and there are a number of different configurations you can get through Alienware's website, but the one I received to review today comes with a few of the standard components that you typically get from this laptop, unless you go super high-end with some of the latest Broadwell-based models. The CPU inside is an Intel Core i5-4210U, which is just a 15-watt part that turbos up to around 2.6 or 2.7 gigahertz with a base clock of 1.7 gigahertz across 2 cores. All models also come with the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 860M, which is a Maxwell-based mid-range GPU equivalent to the 750 Ti desktop class GPU. It's also the same GPU that we found in the Alienware Alpha, so it's pretty suitable for mid-range sort of gaming. The system I also received to review comes with 16GB of DDR3 memory, 8GB though is standard, and a 256GB SSD, which is an upgrade over the standard 1TB 5400 RPM hard drive, and I would almost recommend getting that SSD over the hard drive for performance reasons. As I mentioned earlier, the hardware in the Alienware 13 lends itself to mid-range level gaming, so some of the older titles like BioShock Infinite, Borderlands 2, Batman Arkham Origins that I checked out on this system, you can play at high or even very high maximum settings depending on sort of the frames per second that you want to achieve on this laptop, all at 1080p of course. And some of the newer titles that are out, I played Dragon Age Inquisition quite a lot on this laptop, and I was mostly playing at medium settings at around about 40 frames per second. Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor is another title where you might want to switch between medium and high settings depending on the frame rate that you want to achieve. So definitely you're not going to get high-end levels of graphic settings on this laptop because it does just have that mid-range hardware inside. Nothing like the 970 or 980M that you'd expect on the Alienware 15 and 17, which are Alienware's higher-end laptops. However, there are two main reasons why the mid-range performance of the Alienware 13 mightn't be too much of a concern to you. The first one is price. The base model of this laptop comes in at $999 with the highest end configuration costing around $1,700, and both of those are generally cheaper than some of the high-end 13-inch gaming laptops that are available on the market today. The second reason is, of course, the graphics amplifier, which allows you to put in a fully fledged high-end desktop GPU inside a little box. Well, it's actually not too little, it's actually quite sizable, and then plug it into the back of this system and play games like you're playing on a desktop with high-end graphics, of course, depending on the graphics card that you decide to put inside. Inside the graphics amplifier, you find a 460 watt power supply that is good enough for powering any single GPU graphics card on the market today. There's also a PCIe 16X slot for, of course, sitting in that GPU, and it supports up to 2 slot coolers. At the front, a 92mm fan that will suck air through and attempt to cool the graphics card, and the cooling from this system is quite good for blower-style GPUs, so keep that in mind. On the back panel, you get, of course, the output to the Alienware laptops, as well as 4 USB 3.0 ports, and if you are planning to use any external monitors with the graphics amplifier, you do just plug them straight into the display outputs on the graphics card itself. And of course, you will need a power supply cable for this particular system. Although the connection to the Alienware 13 is just PCI 4X, I didn't find that to be too much of a performance bottleneck, or really a bottleneck at all, with the GTX 780 inside that I was using for review. Maybe if you get up to the GTX 980 and future more powerful graphics cards, that might become a bit of a bottleneck, but at the moment it's not too much of a concern. Of course, the graphics amplifier works as you'd expect. You get desktop class GPU power on the laptop, so the frame rates that I achieved running the GTX 780 are fairly similar to what you'd expect if you built a desktop system with a GTX 780 inside. The one concern I did have was maybe that the CPU would become a little bit of a bottleneck down the track. A lot of the time, this dual-core low-power part was running at nearly 100% utilization. So if you have a CPU-heavy title, you might find that that becomes a little bit of a bottleneck before the GPU running in the amplifier becomes a bottleneck. But most of the time, I found performance was quite good, and running the 780 inside meant that I could play most games at high settings or maximum settings at 1080p and achieve very respectable frame rates. Especially with that high-end card in, you get around double the performance of the internal GPU in the laptop, so it's a fairly significant boost. While the graphics amplifier is definitely an awesome idea for gaming and can definitely expand on the capabilities of the laptop itself, giving you a lot more graphics power, there were a few things that I wasn't too happy about. Internally, there's quite a lot of wasted space behind the power supply that I might like to have seen used by maybe some expansion hard drives or further expansion slots in there. Another thing is simply the price of the amplifier. At $300 without a graphics card, it becomes a fairly expensive investment because you can't just simply put in a cheap graphics card in here because you get the same performance as the laptop. You need to spend at least $200 or $250 on the GPU alone to put in there to see any significant performance benefit. On top of that, you'll have to, of course, buy the amplifier, so this can add up to $550, $600 depending on the graphics card that you put in there. Ideally, I'd like to see the ability to put in something like a Radeon R9 290 from AMD, which you can get for under $300 these days, and buy the amplifier for under $500. So an ideal price point for me for this system would have been maybe $150 or $100 for the amplifier, so that's quite a significant price reduction from the $300 that it does cost. So I'd really like to see Alienware slash the price to make it a very affordable option, especially considering this laptop costs just $999. Aside from those concerns with price, I definitely think that the idea of having a mid-range gaming laptop that's portable and has decent enough specs for gaming on the go, combined with a very powerful on-the-desk compact system that you can plug into the laptop to get extra power is a very promising idea. I don't think it's quite as well executed at the moment as it could be. The laptop itself with the mid-range specifications could be a little bit slimmer and lighter, enabling it to be that much more portable and more able to be taken around the place and used as that everyday laptop. But I think in the future, with a few tweaks, this could be a really great system. Having that ability to take it home, come into a comfortable gaming environment and play with the power of a desktop GPU and have that upgradability is going to be fantastic for the future. And I really hope that Alienware sticks with the graphics amplifier, tweaks it a little bit and supports it across their future range of laptops. So that's it for my review of the Alienware 13 and the graphics amplifier. If you did want to check out full benchmarks for this system, check out the full written review. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel for more video reviews, unboxing and hands-on content coming in the future. Thanks guys, this has been a TechSpot video review.